moderator. Okay.
Baik. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Bapak Ibu. Greetings to all. Alhamdulillah. So glad that we can meet again in good health. Today actually is our sixth session of the Research Leadership and Management Training, which is organized by the Directorate of Research and Community Service. Alhamdulillah, today two blessings have gathered to us, which are the blessing of health and free time. Both met on excellent resultant to us in such way that we can learn from two resource speakers who have been Inaugural proofreading coordinated. First resource speaker is Ms. Nicole Arya. She is now as a Inaugural representative manager, and she will give a brief description of the service offered by the Inaugural, in particular on how ITS and Inaugural can work together to simplify the publication journey. This topic actually will also include an overview of research, and then author journey and service portfolio of Inaugural. And then the second resource speaker will be Dr. Despina Sanudo. It is interesting that her qualification, she got the PhD in University of Cambridge, UK, and currently she is associate professor in University of Athens, Greece. And she will address the challenge faced in review article publication, including the systematic approach to select, critical appraise, and summarize the available research finding to answer a focused scientific question and identify potential research area. Okay, before we start the discussion with our two resource speakers, we invite Mr. Agus Muhammad Data, as the Director of Research and Community Service, to give remarks and direction regarding with our schedule today, Inaugural and review article. Please, Pak Atta, time is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Tovani. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon and good morning, everybody. Honorable Ms. Nicole Arya, the Inaugural manager, and all of the Inaugural team. Honorable Dr. Despina Sanodu, as an Inaugural expert, and our speaker today. And also, I would like to greet Dr. Fadilatul Tovani and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the ITS Research Leadership Program. Today's session, we have a special session, which today the session is held by ITS and Inaugural. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, praise be to God. Gratefully, we are still having possibility to attend this webinar, and hopefully the COVID-19 pandemic will be ended very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, we know that Inaugural is a professional company in outdoor services for the global research community. And also Inaugural known as a partner for some publishers, societies, and also the universities. And we are very grateful that our university, Institute of Technology 10 November, also have a collaboration with Inaugural. I hope the faculty member, the students can utilize the Inaugural facilities to improve the manuscript quality. So today we are having two talks. The first talk will be delivered by Ms. Nicole Arya. She will deliver a talk how to publish in top tier journal, a journey with Inaugural. And then the second talk will be delivered by Dr. Despina. It is a quite interesting topic. It is about the introduction to review article, writing systematic and narrative reviews. So I hope all of us can enjoy this webinar. and hopefully we will have a fruitful discussion also from the speakers. Yeah, and last, I'd like to wish all of you to have a good condition and good health, and enjoy our webinar today. Okay, thank you very much, and good afternoon, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you, Pak Hatta. Okay, without overdue, I give the time and place to Ms. Nicole Arya. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tufani. Thank you, Dr. Hatta, for your humble remarks about Inaugural. Okay, so I'll begin with sharing my screen, and I'll begin with the presentation. Give me a moment. Okay, Salamat Pagi, and as Dr. Hatta and Dr. Tufani has already mentioned, we are grateful to be here. Had it not been pandemic, I would be presenting Inaugural right in front of you at ITS campus. But post-pandemic days, I hope this will be possible. So I'm here to begin with the most prominent question in researchers' life journey. That is how to get published in top-tier journals, a journey with Inaugural. So before I begin, you can leave your questions in the chat Q&A tab that you can see, or in the chat box, and also raise a hand. We'll try to address all your questions at the end of the session. If in case any question is left, we'll be addressing it via email. Okay, so before we begin with the entire idea about how Inaugural can be helpful in simplifying the researcher's life journey, I'll talk a little about the pattern of research in Indonesia. So Indonesia ranks at 5th position amongst 33 Asiatic nations. Over the past few years, Indonesia has made a very good progress in number of research output. In fact, back in 2017, Indonesia ranked at 8th position. Now it is leading with the countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, as you can see. And I hope this positive results keep carrying on over the years. Now, you can see there is a remarkable enhancement in overall research output. 80% fold increase can be seen in the year from the year 1996 up till date in 2020, as per the statistics of 2020. Most of the documents which are being produced in Indonesia are getting cited, around 17%, as we can see from the statistics of 2020. Most of the research, about 53% of the research is getting published in open access journals. So this is something which can prove a very remarkable factor for the enhancement in citation rate in Indonesia. 53% is a very good statistics when it comes to overall research production getting published in open access journals. Now, when it comes to the subject area distribution, the most research field is definitely the most research field is engineering, but the most citations are being received from the research produced in neurosciences, as you can see over here. Now, our team in Inaugural Academy has compiled certain best practices in researchers' life journey. First and foremost is coming up with the research idea, which is novel or which can prove advancing in the existing literature. Coming up with the idea or the topic with the help of your principal advisor or your guide. Following all the ethical practices, especially when any living form is involved in your research. Creating a robust study design and following it accordingly. Selecting a right journal could be the next steps after coining down your topic. The good trick would be to select that particular journal which is already being cited in your research, because you know that this is the journal which is publishing in your very own topic. And making sure that the top journal that you have selected is listed in the databases which are recognized by your institution and the country as a whole. Making sure that the aims and scope of that particular journal or the target audience is similar to that of your research article. Then comes manuscript drafting. Once you have selected the journal, once you have the guidelines and formatting advice in place, you can start writing your manuscript. avoid any plagiarism, and make sure that you're paying attention to the language and grammar. Inago can definitely prove helpful in that particular field. I would request the participants to mute because it is creating a little bit buzz at the background. Thank you. Okay, coming back to the presentation, then once the manuscript is drafted, once the manuscript is ready, you can submit your article to the journal. Although it sounds tempting to submit to the multiple journals, but please do not do that. Make sure you're submitting to one journal at a time. Read all the guidelines or read all the advices which are in place in the journal's website to make sure that the peer review cycle is what you're aware of. Otherwise, also you can humbly follow up with the journal editor if in case the peer review cycle, which is mentioned on the journal's website, crosses. And make sure you're submitting a compelling cover letter which highlights or summarizes your research area. Then comes ensuring all the supporting documents are being submitted to the journal. Next comes the tricky part, that is the addressing or reviewer comments. Make sure you're beginning with the positive note. Peer review cycle is something which is over there in order to advance or improve the quality of your research, because any which way you are going to receive comments, valuable comments from the experts in your domain. So make sure you're beginning with being humble and being thankful for the comments and readership of your article. Make sure you're addressing the comments point-wise and be polite and respectful. This is something which is given. Now, in nowadays, promoting your research has become all the more important. So make sure you're talking about your research topic, which has been published in relevant fields like academia, ResearchGate, be it Twitter as well, so that you're creating a right buzz around your research topic. Make sure you are putting something which is can be understood by the layman as well, making sure you're tagging all your co-authors as well. Any which way, you can definitely take the advice of your research department, those who can talk about your research at relevant field to your colleagues as well. They can communicate about your research to your colleagues. So this was all about the best practices in your researcher's life journey. Now, how Inago can be there with you throughout your research publication journey. So this inverted pyramid summarizes Inago's journey with the author. First step is manuscript preparation, where Inago can be there to help you out, make sure that you are submitting error-free paper to the journal. Then there is a peer review cycle, which is something at the journal end. So once the peer review cycle is going on, you can contemplate and wait for the results from the journal. Once the reviewer comments are back and you are asked to incorporate any minor or major revision, Inago can again work with you to make sure that all the minor revision or the changes that you have brought in your paper are inconsistent with the entire message, or they are at par when it comes to international research writing. And then finally, submitting the revised manuscript. So this cycle can happen on multiple occasions. Inago will be definitely there with you to help you out till the time you're getting published. Now, entire idea of Inago, we formed the year 2005, and we started our operations from Japan by helping the Japanese scientists to overcome the language barrier and get published in high impact factor journals. As on date, I can proudly say that we are the leaders in Japan, Korea, and many other Asian nations. On the other hand side, you can see certain we are member of such societies, those who are related to STM publication industry. For example, COPE, that is the Committee of Publication Ethics. So what we do at Inago completely abides by the international publication standards. This is the global distribution of our offices. We are headquartered at USA. We are in Canada, Colombia, Brazil, Turkey, UK, Germany, Kuwait, India, China, Korea, Russia, and Japan. So all these are physical offices. In the pre-pandemic days, we definitely used to travel a lot. I have been to ITS, and I hope once the pandemic boils down, I can again come to ITS and talk to the researchers. Now, the clients and partners, as you can see, we are working with around 350 universities all across the globe. On the bottom part of our slide, I have listed certain such universities, those who are working with Inago from over past 5 years now. But we are at the same time, we are working with world-renowned publishers as well. So the partnership with the publishers is at two particular segment, be it post-acceptance or pre-submission. In the pre-submission basis form of partnership, what they do is they recommend Inago services to the authors, those who would like to submit their article to their journals. So that way, they are already improving the quality of incoming articles. And secondly is the post-acceptance basis, where they send us the article to make sure that the article which is going to finally get published in their journal meets the international standards of publication. And on the middle section, you can see many such organizations, those who are not directly conducting research, but they are definitely contributing to academia. And they understand that Inago is bringing on board years of experience in helping the author community. I will name certain publishers, those who have been working with us over the past several years now: Elsevier, Wiley, IEEE, TIMA, Royal Society of Chemistry, Bristol University Press. The recent addition to this list was Oxford University Press. And in the middle section, you can see certain organizations, those who are not directly conducting research, such as QS, the ranking organization, and CURA, that is the National Council of University Research Administrators headquartered at USA. IFCU, that is the International Federation of Catholic University, ASCUN, that is the Association of Columbian University, and GMED. So all these organizations, they understand that Inago can definitely prove helpful for the higher education segment to improve their overall quality of research output. And that's the reason they recommend Inago services to their members. Now, what we do can be categorized broadly into two segments. First is the scientific editing and formatting service that we provide. And second is the author education bit. So under author education, what we do is we conduct workshops, we conduct webinars. Such training sessions are conducted under author education initiatives, which is possible with the support of Inago Academy team. I'll talk about the scientific formatting and editing service that is listed over here. In the first level of support, we provide 3 levels of support. First level of support talks about the language check service, where we make sure that the writing is at par with international standards of publication. That is the language and grammar check. This is priced at 0.035 per word after considering the institutional discount after partnering with ITS. Now, this is the level of support that we highly recommend to ESL authors, that is English as a second language authors. This is called copy editing service. Now, in this case, once you submit your paper to Inago, it is checked twice. First by the subject matter expert in your very own domain, and second by the language expert. So this 2-time check will ensure that the quality, which is finally going to the journal, is flawless in nature. Now, the journal formatting will be taken care by Inago. The certificate that yes, your paper has been thoroughly checked by the professionals will be provided by Inago under copy editing service. This service is priced at 0.05 per word, that is $50 per 1,000 words. Now, the substantive editing, which is the premium most support offered by Inago, let's say in this case, we are covering all the features that I've talked about in language check and copy editing. What is coming extra is, in this case, the subject matter expert will also check your paper from the logical point of view. The logical flow of the entire paper will be checked to make sure that the story that you're trying to communicate to the editor-in-chief of a particular journal is intriguing enough, it is holding enough. The presentation enhancement will be done. The content, let's say if there is any ambiguity between the 2 statements that you have made in your manuscript. See, you might not be able to see this from that particular aspect because you have already done your research. You know your research in and out. But the third eye will be able to identify any ambiguity in your message that you're trying to convey to the target audience overall. So this is something that we concentrate upon under substantive editing. The compelling part of your paper, that is the cover letter, will be provided by Inago under substantive editing. The best feature of this particular service is Edit Unlimited. Why I call it best feature? Because in this case, we'll be providing you support for 365 days. That is, let's say you're submitting a paper to the journal. Journal happens to comment on certain parts and ask you to make minor revisions. These minor revisions can also be checked by Inago without any additional cost under substantive editing. So you can have multiple rounds of check with Inago if you're using substantive editing service at the first go. So this particular service is priced at 0.07 per word, that is $70 per 1,000 words. Now, this is the slide that depicts the distribution or the differences between all three levels of support, what you're gonna get under each level. And the pricing that I spoke about, considering the institutional discount, are available at www.inago.com/univ/ITAs. That is the dedicated platform for ITAS authors only. Now, there is certain extended support which is available under Inago, not just manuscript preparation. Let's say if the author is confused about which journal to aim for, our experts will be analyzing the paper and certain parameters, pre-discussed parameters like which database you are aiming, whether this manuscript was rejected previously or not. Let's say, what is the speed of publication that you are looking? Based on that particular factor, we'll advise you top 5 journal, along with the proper explanation that why we think that this article is fit for this particular journal. Then there is a pre-submission peer review, which is a mock peer review. In this case, our expert will be doing constructive criticism of your manuscript so that you can identify the gaps beforehand it goes to the journal. Then there is plagiarism check. We'll use the tool called Authenticate to identify the similarity index of your manuscript. Then the Inago webinars. The webinars that are conducted on the monthly basis are free for the authors of a partnered university to access. And finally, the customizable training programs that we conduct with our partnered university. And under this initiative, this is what session we are conducting today. Now, how we have maintained our quality over the years, we conduct audits on a monthly basis in order to take comments from each and every author that we are working with. We collect feedbacks on the regular basis. Let's say if any feedback that you'd like to share with us, if there is any problem in the service that we have delivered or any operational query that you might have, you can always share your comments with us and we'll incorporate those changes into our operation to make sure that we are improving consistently with our authors. Now, because of this quality philosophy, we have maintained the quality satisfaction ratio of 99.4%. Our repeat client ratio falls between 77 to 85%. Now, the team that has made this quality possible is our editors. They're the native English speakers from USA, UK, Canada, Australia. They're the peer reviewers for many reputed journals. They're themselves published authors. Their average on editing experience, I'm putting stress on the fact their average on English editing experience is 19.4 years. So these are the professionals, those who will be putting their best foot forward in helping you get published. Now, how Inago is different from rest of the offering, because you must be familiar of many such names, those who claim to provide you support in your researcher's life journey. How Inago stands out completely is, first and foremost, is the specialized subject area matching. So let me take an example. Let's say your paper is in the field of medicine, the subject is dentistry. The further specialization is oral dentistry. Inago will make sure that the expert from the oral dentistry background should work on the paper. This is how we do level 3 matching in order to make sure that the right editor, those who understand the terminologies that you have used in your paper, are making constructive changes to your entire research idea so that it is becoming impactful overall to the journal and hence to the target audience also. And then the 2-editor system, as I said, in every step, in copy editing and substantive editing, we follow 2-editor system. Every paper will be checked twice, first by the subject matter expert and second by the language expert. Any ambiguity which is left by the first editor could be erased by the second editor. And then the Edit Unlimited feature. We are working with you till the time you're getting published under Edit Unlimited support. This is available under substantive editing if you're using the premium support of ours. And finally, the Inago promise. We are taking 100% guarantee that your paper will not be rejected on the basis of the language. Even if in case after being worked by Inago, if journal happens to comment on the language, we'll rework on the paper till the time the journal is satisfied. This is what Inago promise stands for. Now, the Inaugural Academy team, this is the team of tireless professionals, those who create your content, which is good for the authors to know. In fact, the ITS website, the co-branded ITS platform between Inaugural and ITS, has all the scholarly articles on academic writing, publication stages, and industry news, which are directly fetched from Inaugural Academy website. Do check out their website. It's quite interesting. They create podcast articles, webinars, ebooks for the authors to learn from. Now, this is the co-branded platform that I've been talking about. We'll be leaving it in the chat box for you to check out. It has all the necessary information about the STM industry. Also, over here, you can get access to the subsidized pricing in accordance to the partnership between Inaugural and ITS. Now, this is a small video that I'd like you to watch.
Do you have a research paper? Want to publish it in an international journal and be famous? But are you worried about journal rejection? Don't be. Inauguro's author services are designed to make your paper publication ready. Our mission is author first, quality first. Nothing else matters more to us. We offer 2 levels of editing to address all academic writing and publishing needs of researchers. Our copy editing service makes your paper meet all journal requirements for grammar, formatting, technical accuracy, style, and consistency. Papers submitted to this service are returned free from all such errors. But if you want a lot more than this, our substantive editing service is exactly what you need. Wondering what more does it offer? It improves the logical flow and structure of your paper. It enhances the content to fix any gaps that may exist in the paper. You also get Rejection Shield, which means we edit your paper even after you receive your journal's feedback. We edit responses to reviewer queries, write a cover letter, and edit content added by you. In short, we offer you complete peace of mind. No matter what service you choose, remember the Inaugural promise. We promise you that your manuscript will never be rejected because of language. Need more? Wait, we've just gotten started. You need re-editing? No problem. Our Edit Unlimited support offers free editing unlimited number of times till you're satisfied. You have questions for our editors? Bring them on. We won't charge you a penny. You need a cover letter too? Why not? We'll make one that will make your research shine. You need a certificate as proof of editing. You'll have it in your inbox. The result of all of this, publication success.
So publication success is something that we are working together with the author for them to achieve. Now, this is the brief information about our website. We'll be leaving this in the chat section for everybody to access. Now, I'll be opening the floor for questions. Do we have questions?
Silakan Bapak Ibu, kita persilakan untuk question and answer.
Yeah, in the meantime, I'll also walk you through the platform that I was talking about so that everybody is aware. That is the inaugural.com, www.inaugural.com/unif/ITS. It's the dedicated platform for ITS authors to use. Once you scroll down, you'll see the service that I've explained, language check, copy editing, substantive editing. And once you click on submit now, you'll be routed to the quotation page. But before that, the scholarly resource section that I was talking about, the Inaugural Academy team, those who create the articles on academic writing, publication stages, and industry news. The articles are directly fetched from Inaugural Academy website. It might take a while, but over here, you can access all those articles completely free and learn. Then comes the webinar section. Over here, you'll get the access to repository of all the past webinars that we have conducted and the news about the upcoming webinars. And you can simply click on register now and make sure about your participation. Yeah, so we'll be having next session with Dr. Gavin. Over here, you can simply click on register now and attend the webinar. And these are the repository of all the past webinars that I was talking about. Coming back, the scholarly resource section. Okay, the articles are not yet fetched. I'm sure they'll be fetched in a while. And then the service section. So once, I think my internet is slow, that is the reason it is taking a bit a while. In the meantime, if you have questions, please feel free to mention it in the Q&A section or ask. Do we have question, Dr. Tufani? I see certain.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Nicole.
My pleasure.
Yeah, interesting. You already mentioned about the Enago clients as well as the partner, yeah. And then you also about the process business in Enago. In terms of service, Ms. Nicole, yeah, is it the service of Enago is provided to the author until the article is accepted?
So under substantive editing, our support is available for 365 days. If you're choosing substantive editing service at the first go, you'll have 365 days support. And I'm sure by that time you'll receive a final decision from the journal. Let's say even if it is going over and beyond, Inago support will always be there with the author to make sure that they are submitting error-free paper to the journal. So you can trust Inago that it is working with you till the time your research is getting published. If not journal A, then journal B. Under substantive editing, let's say if the journal happens to say that you should submit your paper to XYZ journal, then we can reformat your paper as per the XYZ journal guidelines. So this is how our support is there with you throughout your researcher's life journey.
Okay, thank you very much. It's full service, yeah. Guaranteed to be published, yeah.
Yeah, it's not guarantee, but definitely there is a support system. So guaranteeing publication is unethical practice that Inago never does. So that's the reason I'm saying it's not a guarantee, but it's a support system that we have formulated with the experience of over more than 15 years now. And we have been working with the researchers all across the globe. Approximately 2 million authors have worked with us. So you can see that we have built something which is with the experience and which is in the favor of researchers.
Okay. Thank you. Roughly, how long it will take the time for rewriting and then so on, Ms. Nicole?
So once you submit your paper, it is always on the number of words. Mostly, we edit 1,000 words a day, 1,000 to 2,000 words a day. Let's say if your article is of 5,000 words, we'll return back to you the edited manuscript within next 5 days. So that's the time period. Otherwise, we also have the express option available, which take only 2 days, 48 hours that is, but that is with the premium pricing. So I'll always advise authors to make sure that they are giving us at least 5 days to return back the edited manuscript.
Okay. Probably you can, please, if other attendants can raise your question.
Please, sir, please feel free. You can write, you can ask in Bahasa. We have colleagues from ITS, those who can translate. Okay, I have a question. Do we have to pay first or we get the service first? Any price range? So pricing I've already displayed though. With regards to whether the payment has to be done first. So the system according to which we have signed the partnership with ITS is on 2 parameters. Let's say certain articles are coming through ITS, designated SPOC, that is Dr. Tufani, is coming through them. Then we'll immediately start working on the article and we'll submit the edited article back to the author. And we'll bill the university at the end of the month. But if in case we are receiving the article from the individual authors, then we'll ask for the advance payment, because this is the email ID that we are not aware, that is not configured as authoriser's email ID. And that's the reason we'll ask for the advance payment before we begin working on the article. And once the payment is received, then we'll start working on it and we'll be submitting the edited manuscript within the stipulated time period, which is already specified. And over here, you can see the price range. according to the level of support, whether language check, copy editing, or substantive editing. This is the price that we have. And these are the pricing per word. Let's say if you would like us not to work on the references, then you can remove that from the editable, part, and you can reduce the word count and be economical in terms of editing your paper. So that's the price range, and it will be shared with all of you, the recording and the slides. Okay, any more questions? One second. I'll check with my team. Do you have more questions? Please feel free to mention.
Silakan Bapak Ibu, kalau ada yang ingin ditanyakan.
Okay, we'll hold the board for a moment, and if in the meantime you can raise hand or leave your question in the chat box, we'll hold for a moment. Hello, Dr. Despina. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, how are you?
Well, we are good. We had a good session about Inaugural. And are there any questions pertaining Inaugural, or shall we just start with the next topic with Dr. Despina? Dr. Tufani, can you hear me?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Hello,
Hi.
Ms. Despina.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Thank you very much for joining with us.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to the session.
Okay, before taking a lot of time, I think we should get started with the academic topic.
Okay.
Sorry, just to check, now it's Dr. Arya talking, and then
Well,
did you talk?
I have finished.
Oh, because with my clock, it's 9:47.
Yeah, so Despina, can
So
we,
I was supposed to start at 10:30, right?
yeah,
It's an hour, it's 45 minutes earlier. It's fine by me to start. I just want to make sure I wasn't late because I
Well,
thought I
no
still
worries.
have 45 minutes.
yes, no, you are not late. You're not late. Thank you for joining. This is Kriti from Inaugural Academy. And we have finished Nicole's session and we are just waiting for your session to start. So can we please start it in next 5 minutes if we
Sure.
want to? Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. We can start, check the settings of your system, Despina. You can share your screen.
Great, I'll do that. Give me 1 second to open my files. Wonderful. Great. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
All of it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It's clear.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we can start with the presentation from Dr. Despina. Yeah, it is interesting that actually when I read the profile of Dr. Despina, it's amazing. It is 7 pages, 7 pages of curriculum vitae. She's wonderful person, and right now he is as associate professor. Interestingly, in clinical genomic and pharmacogenomic unit, Department of Internal Medicine, University of Athens, Greece. We have a lot of publication from her, and then a lot of award, and also grants. I think we can start the presentation from Dr. Despina. Please, Dr. Despina, time is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful for the honoring introduction, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. The topic we will be discussing is the introduction to review articles and details on how we go ahead to write systematic and narrative reviews. Just a disclaimer from Inago, and a note that you're most welcome to submit your questions through the Q&A box during the presentation or at the end of the presentation. I will be answering all of them together at the very end so we can have as lively as possible a discussion. The agenda we will be going through today involves the following 8 topics. First of all, an introduction to review articles, followed by the different types of review articles, as there are several. And then we will zoom into what are systematic reviews, how do we go ahead to write a systematic review, how do we structure it, what is the role of the meta-analysis in systematic reviews and how do we go about doing that, what are narrative reviews and how do they compare. So let's start with a brief introduction to review articles. What are review articles? They are comprehensive summaries that describe, enumerate, evaluate, and critically appraise information available on a research topic based on the information that's out there in the literature. It involves the synthesis of relevant existing data, providing researchers with up-to-date information. And that's why it's important to give emphasis to the most recent literature available on the topic you will be focusing at. Reviews help the scientific community identify gaps, inconsistencies, and potential areas for future research. So they have an important role to play in the scientific literature and in science in general. What's the difference between a research paper and a review article? The basics: a research paper has as its main purpose to to describe the experiments that were performed, so primary data that were generated towards answering a specific scientific question by giving rise to new information that was not already known in the scientific community. And the paper, the research paper, goes on to describe those findings, to interpret them, and to discuss them in comparison to existing knowledge. So the research questions formulated, raw data is collected, statistical analysis may be performed based on that. And this is what ultimately comes out through a research paper. On a review article, however, the main purpose is to critically analyze previously published data. So we're not talking about raw data, but a discussion, a critical appraisal of existing data, existing literature, as a matter of fact, not just data. So review articles will focus on a specific topic or a research question, and an overview of the existing literature will be prepared. Are there needs for literature reviews, review manuscripts? Of course, and you can see that yourself by looking at PubMed, by looking at all the different reviews that are out there, how many citations they're receiving, which is indicative of how very helpful many of them are to the scientific community. Now, the need for a literature review increases as the amount of primary data increases and the amount of literature reviews increases on a topic. And this is a very nice graph you can, based on NCBI information, that you see how the increasing amount of published research increases the need for a literature review. Whereas in combination with the increasing amount of literature reviews, there's an increasing need for a review of reviews. And that's how we end up having several different types of review articles, as we will discuss in a moment. Now, what are the objectives of a literature review? First of all, to provide an integrated, logically synthesized overview of the current state of knowledge. It's there to identify inconsistencies and ambiguities in existing research findings, and this is the role of the author of a literature review. We don't just go on to say in other words what's already been said in the literature. We're there to carefully collect the material, critically appraise it, and start reaching some conclusions describing our observations. Through the literature review, we evaluate the methodological approaches that have been applied and try to provide unique insights. What new do we have to say about this field based on the available primary literature or based on other available reviews? A literature review is there to accelerate the accumulation of knowledge and to facilitate the increased understanding on a research topic. And as it comes to its completion, it's there to recommend in a way areas for future research by pinpointing the knowledge gaps we currently have in this field and indicating promising future directions based on the appraisal of the current knowledge we have in this field as a whole. Now let's look at some tips for writing literature reviews. First of all, it's important to identify a topic that you will be writing about that is interesting to a larger audience, including editors, readers, and researchers alike. This is important because the more interesting and cutting edge the topic you will be talking about, the more the readers and the more appreciation of the work you will be performing. And of course, this will lead to the possibility of publishing to a higher impact journal, etc. Then second tip would be to explore scoping reviews, existing scoping reviews, to assess existing literature on the topic. Where do things stand? Of course, this assumes that there are some scoping reviews. If they're not, then you go on to evaluate the literature yourself. As a part of search strategy, you can combine keywords with Boolean operators, such as quote unquote and, not, or, to include or exclude specific articles. So in a way, you're starting to develop criteria for your searches as to what articles you want to take into consideration for preparing your review. And in this process, you must be very methodical in keeping track of the different searches you have performed and the different literature, the different references and citations that you came up with in each step of the process. And this is very important in some types of reviews, but it is very helpful in general so that you know what strategy you've used to collect the material that you will be basing your review on. Allow me to give you or share with you a few more tips. When writing a literature review, make notes of your own opinion about different gaps or inconsistencies or contradictions in the literature. Make note of new insights, anything that you would like to share, your personal opinion, objective opinion on the data and the information that you're coming across. When it comes to writing, try to write a review that is as clear, well-structured, unambiguous as possible. This is very important so that the reader can truly appreciate the key points you want to convey. In a review article, you can include tables, graphs, charts, or figures that will better convey the message that you want to share. The tables can nicely summarize the information, the references that you have been using and key information that you've extracted from them. The figures, for example, can show diagrams, for example, of your hypothesis based on the available literature, and so on and so forth. There's many different types of figures, graphs, charts that you can include using your scientific knowledge and imagination. Try to prepare a summary with an emphasis on aim. Always structuring your review with the main scientific question, the main aim in your mind. What I often do is I write the central goal of my manuscript on a piece of paper, and I have it right next to my computer screen as I go ahead to write a manuscript. So I can often look at it, and sometimes when my thoughts get carried away to other indirectly related directions, I look at my main aim, my goal, and then collect all my thoughts and work back towards this direction. At the summary of your review, it's helpful to the reader to recapitulate the key points that you want to make to support the answer to the key question. Indicate the important takeaways for the reader. So when they come to the closure of your review, the key take-home messages, your conclusions from the work you've been doing, from all your reading, thinking, critical appraisal is clear, and the reader can happily take that away. Now, different types of literature reviews. This is important to clarify so that one can choose along the way the best suited type for the work that they want to perform and share with the scientific community. So there are several different types of literature reviews. There are critical reviews of the literature, systematic reviews, narrative reviews, meta-analysis, scoping reviews, and umbrella reviews. And I'd like to share with you a few words about the main characteristics of each one of those reviews. So first of all, critical reviews involves the critical evaluation of existing literature. These reviews identify the most significant findings through a detailed examination of the literature. And they can either be presented conceptually or chronologically. Now, systematic reviews are the systematic, comprehensive, involve the systematic and comprehensive search for research evidence through the application of a well-defined approach. So now there's a specific analytical strategy that needs to be applied, a step-by-step process with very specific criteria that need to be described, need to be followed in a very objective way and described in such a detail that anyone who wants to reproduce this type of systematic reviews, this type of systematic analysis, they can. So the research findings are based on predefined eligibility criteria and specific guidelines are followed. And we will discuss a lot more about that in the coming slides. Now, narrative reviews. They are a summary of the literature on the topic of interest, providing a holistic interpretation of the topic. They help identify the gaps, inconsistencies, as well as the latest trends in the field. Meta-analysis. Here we have more hands-on research, if you want, work in the sense that statistical analysis needs to be performed using data that have been published in other manuscripts. So here we have statistically combined results from quantitative studies. We have graphical and tabular presentations of data, and these meta-analyses help in detecting patterns and relationships in the data obtained. Also, meta-analysis, keep in mind, because they tend to include the data from multiple studies that have been performed, statistically, they can have enhanced greater power because it allows to take into consideration a much bigger population. Of course, there are several different pitfalls and considerations to keep in mind when performing meta-analysis, and we'll talk about some of that in this talk. Now, scoping reviews, another type of literature review. It involves the assessment of nature, size, and scope of existing research. They evaluate both quantity and quality of research, and the completeness is determined by type and scope constraints. Now, umbrella reviews, they are usually a compilation of research evidence from multiple reviews. So if it's a topic that has attracted considerable attention, considerable primary research, and already a number of reviews, umbrella reviews are important to assess, evaluate, and summarize all this information that has become available and can be daunting and overwhelming for someone who wants to get the highlights, the key points, the latest developments in this field. And that's where umbrella reviews are valuable. So it summarizes what is known and unknown and suggests recommendations for further research based on the assessment of all this available literature. But now let's zoom in to the topic of systematic reviews. What exactly are systematic reviews in more detail, and how do we go about writing them? So we have all different reviews, systematic reviews in there as a subgroup, and within systematic reviews, we have another subgroup, which are systematic reviews involving meta-analysis. This slide is just to put things in perspective for you. Now, reviews summarize a broader topic qualitatively with no specific protocol or inclusion criteria. The systematic reviews, however, as we started discussing a minute ago, aim to answer a specific, well-formulated question with a defined search strategy. And this is very important, and this is what differentiates them from other reviews. You need to have a very specific research strategy, and it may include a meta-analysis. Now, when it comes to systematic reviews involving meta-analysis, then we are talking about combining studies from systematic reviews and performing statistical analysis to determine if there are significant observations there. So we're assessing significance of specific findings that have been reported. What are the characteristics of a good systematic review? What do we need to keep in mind in order to write a great systematic review? We need, first of all, an effective title with a clear objective. We need to apply a comprehensive strategy that's reproducible and transparent. So we need to have clear rules as to what our search strategy, our inclusion-exclusion criteria, how we performed everything. We want a summary based on high-quality evidence. So it matters a lot what type of literature we use to write our systematic review, what we will be including in our systematic review. And we need to be very clear about our inclusion and exclusion criteria, not only in our mind, but also in the mind of all authors joining efforts. And we need to express them in such a way that they're perfectly clear to the readers. And of course, we need to ensure through the steps that we take that the results we present are bias-free. So how do we go about achieving those features for our great systematic review? First of all, we're formulating the question. How do we do that? We need to develop a clear, structured, and unambiguous question. To achieve this, usually you need to do considerable amount of homework, reading about this field, appreciating what are the open questions, what are the areas where a systematic review is needed and has something valuable to contribute to the scientific community. There are several tools you can use for framing focused questions, and some of them are mentioned here, and I would welcome you to search and read details about them in your own time if you're interested in writing systematic review. So keep note of those. One is Pico's, Spider, Spice, and Eclipse. And I will go on to discuss a little bit Pico's as an example. Now, for framing a question through Pico's, first of all, you determine the most important characteristics of the population that you will be discussing, working on, such as age, gender, disease, health, or pathological condition, or any other condition, etc. Then you need to discuss the intervention exposure that you will be considering. The primary interventions such as screening, will you be talking about diagnostic features? Will you be talking about drug treatment? So what intervention will you be discussing? Third, you need to discuss what the comparison control will be for your study. Main alternative to the intervention. So this could be the placebo group, the gold standard, a group that did not receive treatment, or a group that received the standard therapy. It very much depends on the scientific question that you're asking. So ensure that the control group that you will be including is the right one for the question you will be raising. Then make sure you're clear about the outcomes that you will be taking into consideration. Possible conclusions and outcomes such as illness complications or death, or what is the end point that you will be considering in your study. And then consider the study design. What is the best study design for your systematic review? What's appropriate for the proposed work? So according to Pico's, this would be the main axes to consider when you start putting together your notes for preparing your systematic review. A little more about framing the study question. In specific, an example to put things in perspective for you. In the case of a study question such as in middle-aged women suffering from migraine, is rizatriptan compared with placebo effective in decreasing pain symptoms? And in this study, one could hypothetically be talking about the evaluation using case control design. Now, according to Pico's, here's what we have. The population problem is middle-aged women suffering from migraine. So this is clear. The intervention is treatment with rizatriptan. The control, as clearly stated in the question, is the comparison, the placebo. And the outcome we're looking for is the effective decrease in pain symptoms. The study design is a case control. So you see how the way we've phrased the question, the study question here, encompasses all 5 of the features of the Pico's recommendations. In a similar fashion, you can go ahead to formulate your own question, ensuring that these key considerations are there. If you have these in your study question clearly spelled out for you right at the beginning of your work, it will guide you step by step in structuring a well-organized, clear, and focused systematic review. Now, what about developing the protocol that you will be using in order to perform your the work needed for the systematic review? So first of all, define inclusion and exclusion criteria, outline the search strategy, define the tools that you will be using for data extraction, and determine how the quality of studies will be assessed. All these are extremely important points because these will determine the quality of the data coming in, and as a next step, they will determine the quality of the work you will be performing and the quality of your systematic review. So it's very important you ensure that the highest quality of data, well filtered, well considered, are included in your study in an unbiased way as possible. Identify the methods you will be using for data synthesis and plan ahead of time how the results will be presented. Now, when it comes to searching for the literature that you will be including in your systematic review, in your analysis, try to be very specific as to what the search criteria will be, and make sure that these are applied uniformly by all authors contributing to this part of the work, all members of the team. So if you're using PubMed, remember that you have all these filtering options on the left-hand side, and you have the advanced search tools where you can be very specific as to what you are looking for. You can ask for the display of specific types of articles, specific types of studies, specific time window, specific years. So for example, you may want to focus only on the work that's been performed over a specific period of time, the last 5-10 years. So these criteria need to be applied uniformly, but also need to be carefully recorded and clearly presented in your manuscript later on. So if anyone wants to replicate this work and confirm what's being done, they can do so in a completely transparent way. And then, of course, in PubMed, you have the display options that can help you view the results of every search in the fashion that's more convenient to you. This can be ordering them in the best match, based on most recent, based on publication date, etc. So you can use all these different tools to facilitate your work. Now, conducting your research, the third and very important tool. Create an exhaustive database using the Pico's concept and focus keywords. Retrieve and review the literature from the comprehensive list of abstracts. So working with abstracts at this point is very important in order to identify the information that you need. And very important to minimize personal bias, inevitable individual bias. It's strongly recommended that at least 2 experts are involved in doing this in parallel, so that the work used, the data used for your systematic review has been the outcome of the agreement of at least 2 independent experts working in parallel, one blinded to the work of the other until it's completed. Everyone working on this should maintain a search log and collect all the retrieved studies into a citation manager tool. So for each set of citations that have been retrieved, the criteria for selecting them needs to be carefully recorded and transparent. Now, the fourth step, select studies and assess quality. Very important as well. Quality is extremely important here. Screen the studies for scope and relevance. Ensure that they fit the criteria that you have established. To help you along these lines, you can use checklists for quality, such as the 5-point Oxford Quality Rating Scale and the Consort Statement. And then it's time to extract data from those studies that you have selected based on your inclusion-exclusion criteria, based on quality, based on scope. Make sure you have a clear strategy as to how you will be extracting the data and detailed description for everyone working on this as to how this information will be recorded and stored and then processed. Use simple data extraction form or a table to organize this information. And again, engage a minimum of 2 reviewers for data extraction, again, to minimize any potential bias and to avoid data entry errors. And then coming to the 6th point, analyzing and interpreting the results. Make sure that you clearly present your findings, including the search criteria and strategies. Take time to think carefully about the data that have come out from your search and provide an interpretation for your readers. Don't just give them the data, the outcome, the numbers, but try to interpret this. It is your role, your scientific role, to think about it, evaluate it, appraise it, and discuss it. Provide recommendations for practice, indicate future directions. Through this work, you're demonstrating your expertise in the field. And this is what your readers will be looking for, your expert opinion based on the critical evaluation that you have performed on the available literature to date. So how do we structure a systematic review? Let's have a look at an example. This is a publication in 2020 on COVID, very popular, unfortunately, topic at the moment, but there's already so much literature available on COVID, so much primary literature, and so many reviews already that there is indeed need for expert opinions in the field and systematic reviews. An example is here. You have a title clearly stating that this is a systematic review with a meta-analysis of clinical, laboratory, and imaging features of COVID-19. You have the contributing authors clearly listed and the DOI, which comes after publication. Now, in the abstract of this systematic review, look at how specific pieces of information, required information, are incorporated in different parts of the abstract. So this is a structured abstract based on the recommendations of this journal, and the abstract itself has an introduction, methods, results, and conclusion. In the introduction, the need is clearly indicated because there's no systematic review on COVID-19 to date, the date that this was submitted. What was the adopted methodology? And this is clearly stated. We performed a systematic literature review with meta-analysis. This was the approach. And you indicate the significant results. How many articles were retrieved for which time period and how many patients were considered in these articles. And you see some key information from the results And then in the conclusions, you have the take-home messages that the authors decided upon for their readers. Now, moving forward, if you start looking at the introduction and the objectives of this systematic review, you see how in the introduction, you have the background information, just enough for the readers to appreciate what's happening in this field so far, what the open question is, and why the systematic review is helpful towards answering this open question. So it indicates that the coronavirus, a newly emerging zoonotic agent that appeared in December 19, causes the coronavirus disease, provides some information based on what's known so far, and then goes on to delineate bullet by bullet the objectives of the systematic review. And this certainly helps the reader appreciate what this manuscript will be talking about. So what information they can gain, what knowledge they can gain by continuing reading the systematic review. And this is where the reader will usually decide if they want to go ahead reading this manuscript or not. So the objectives here were to summarize the clinical, laboratory, and image features of COVID-19 reported, to examine the outcome of COVID-19 cases, to assess the prevalence of comorbidities. These were the primary objectives. So all the methodology chosen from there on was targeted at answering those questions. So in the methodology, you have clearly spelled out the different steps that were followed. First of all, what was the search strategy? What was the study selection process? The data collection process, the data items that were used, the assessment of methodological quality and risk of bias. So all this basically helps the readers appreciate strategy, criteria, process of analysis, and quality of the study, assessment of the quality of the study. Now, in the results section, you start to describe the outcome of the work that you have been performing, starting with how many articles did you end up including in your assessment, and providing more details about these articles. You can also include tables here. You can provide the demographic characteristics of the patients or individuals included, clinical manifestations, imaging complications and outcomes, etc. This is all serving the objectives that the specific authors set out. Of course, depending on the question that you will be trying to address, different results sections will be used and different information will be presented. But here, in the context of this example, I'm trying to show you how the methodology and the results are structured in a way to answer in the most effective way the questions, the scientific questions raised by the authors, and addressing the objectives that were set out right from the start. So in the results, of course, all significant findings and key outcomes will be highlighted from the selected papers, and you will be presenting not only tables, but you're welcome to present graphs and other figures that you consider appropriate in order to demonstrate to the readers in the best possible way the information that you have generated that will help them appreciate what's going on in this field. And then you have the discussion. The discussion section aims to answer those questions raised from the start, and answer them not by just providing data, because all the data has now been provided in the results section, but this is where you discuss what these data mean. You interpret those findings, you create hypotheses, you comment on observations that may be different from what's been reported in the literature so far, disagreements or consistencies or findings you have that emphasize further support complement what's already known. In a systematic review, you certainly need to indicate limitations and scope for improvement. So your expert opinion is coming in and is being shared with the reader. You want to help them understand what's available in the literature, what contradictions, what consistencies, what complementary information is there, what questions may still be open after all the work that's been performed, but also based on the knowledge we have accumulated over time, where is this field heading? What's the next step? What's the promise of the findings today, both at the clinical level and the research level? How do you envision this being translated to clinical practice, or what further research could be performed to help us understand even better the specific field that you're working on, you will be discussing? And here in this discussion, you can see some representative sentences where these key points I mentioned are addressed. Now, towards the end of your manuscript, most journals require that you indicate author contributions. So what has each author contributed in the context of this manuscript? What was the funding, if there was funding for this work? Which funding bodies, which grants, etc. If an ethical approval was required and obtained, and where was it obtained from? And you can have more details for contributions from different authors. And of course, you can have acknowledgement sections where you acknowledge the contribution of individuals that helped but did not perform quite a big enough amount of work to be included in the author list. And of course, you always indicate if there are any conflicts of interest. Now, there are some tools that can help in the preparation of systematic reviews. Covidence, SR Toolbox, Distiller SR, and RevMan would be some of them. Covidence is helpful in importing citations from reference managers, facilitates screening of abstracts and full text manuscripts, and assists with data extraction. The SR Toolbox is community-driven, searchable, web-based. It's basically a catalog of tools and allows simple keyword search to locate different tools that can help you in the process. The Distiller SR helps in screening and extracting data. It helps with the layout of workflows and assignment of reviewers. And also it helps considerably with monitoring the study progress and the reviewing process. And then another example is RevMan, which is used for preparing and maintaining the Cochrane reviews, facilitates in the preparation of protocols, and can help in performing meta-analysis. However, at this point, just a minor note, but important one, that to perform a meta-analysis, one does need considerable expertise. It's definitely not just the click of a button. It's an entire field that you do require people that have worked on it and know how to perform different types of meta-analysis for different types of scientific questions. Now, with these 4 examples, just keep in mind, as I mentioned, these are examples. There are several tools out there, and you can play around, check them out, and choose which one or which ones of those tools best serve what you want to achieve and the way you want to prepare your systematic review. You may find that for different types of reviews, you may want to choose different tools depending on the needs. Now, the role of meta-analysis in systematic reviews. As we mentioned, in some systematic reviews, meta-analysis are included. Now, meta-analysis is the analysis of analysis. It involves statistical methods that combine data from other systemic reviews addressing a specific research question. It's a rigorous, scientific, consolidated, and quantitative review of other studies. It permits the identification of statistically significant differences among different study groups. So it requires often specific tools, specific knowledge, specific approaches in order to be performed accurately, objectively, and in a high quality fashion. Now, beyond the systematic reviews, another type of reviews that we discussed that you will often come across are narrative reviews. A few words about narrative reviews. The main purpose is to identify studies that describe a research problem that do not have a predetermined research question or specific search strategy. In narrative reviews, authors don't need to follow a specific protocol, which is very different from what we've been discussing about systematic reviews. Here, there are no standards or protocols to guide it. And the ultimate goal is to describe and synthesize available literature and provide a conclusion from the evidence. The key characteristics of a narrative review. So again, summarizing the literature available on a given topic. It's often written by experts in the field who know very well what are the latest developments. They have a good overview of the field. And narrative reviews serve as a good source of background information in the given field. So it's valuable to a broad range of different readers for a number of different reasons. So they don't follow strict systematic methods like other literature reviews. And in that sense, one could consider them easier to conduct or compose. But again, I would put a question mark next to that because it would be easy for someone who's truly an expert in the field, who has extensive experience and knows right up front what they want to talk about. Otherwise, it does take a very large amount of effort. It's preferred by practitioners when it comes to reading and obtaining information because it's easier to comprehend. So narrative reviews are often the type of review of choice for a broader audience. However, narrative reviews can be prone to bias, and this is because authors may be selective as to which articles they include. They don't have to include everything. And they may exclude articles that don't necessarily support their hypotheses or their take on the field. So it's important when reading a narrative review to bear in mind that it does express the opinion of the authors based on the evidence that they consider most relevant, credible, etc. So how do we write a narrative review? First of all, it's important to define the topic you will be focusing at and the audience you will be targeting. Select a topic that not only holds is close to your interest, but is also of interest to your target audience, researchers, editors, general readers. So clarify this in your mind. Who do you want your readers to be? Who will benefit most from this work? And ensure that there is enough data in the literature to meet your needs for conducting a narrative review. So it's a fine balance between choosing a topic for which there is very little information out there or very much information, too much information out there that will be overwhelming to process in one single review. Now search and research and search again the literature very carefully, as thoroughly as possible, to identify the most relevant literature through the keyword searches and through the most relevant electronic databases, and make sure that you take into consideration any landmark papers that are there. Consider the time frame that you want to be talking about, the work that was produced when, only in the last 5 years, the 10 years, or the entire lifetime of this specific field. Usually, depending on the field, we tend to focus in no more than the last 10 years, but sometimes if it's a rapidly evolving field, you want to be talking about the last few years. And adjust the focus of your narrative review if you end up finding similar reviews to the topic that you had in mind. You don't want to be duplicating efforts. You want to provide new knowledge. You want to provide new opinions, something novel for the scientific community. So try to avoid duplicating the effort that's already been done unless you have something different to say about this topic. Now, be critical when reading the literature that you have selected. You will find in some instances that the information there may be contradictory, that there may be inconsistencies, that there may be approaches that you don't necessarily fully agree with, or you have critical comments to make about them. So read the literature carefully and make notes of your opinions, of comments that you want to make. And any comments you make sure that they are supported by information that's available out there. Very important when structuring your narrative review to choose a logical structure that will be easy for the readers to follow, for the specific audience to follow. Write the review in a straightforward, effective way with clarity and absence of any ambiguities. You can use diagrams and figures. I'm sure you know from your own experience that they're usually very welcome by readers. It's so much easier to see a hypothesis prepared in the form of a figure or a diagram than described in an entire page of text. You want to combine all the different tools that are available to you with text to give to your readers the best possible means to understand what you want to say. And of course, include all relevant sections in your manuscript, carefully considering the different types of information that you want to put in each section. The abstract, the background introduction, the literature search strategy, and then your observations, comments, opinions, your critical analysis. So if we were to compare systematic and narrative reviews, what would be the key differences between them? Now here we have the narrative reviews on the left and the systematic reviews on the right. A table, because I'm trying to show you in a tabular format that's possibly easier for the audience to appreciate how the two compare. Now, when it comes to the hypothesis, a narrative review represents a broad overview of the research topic. A systematic review is a well-defined and clearly formulated, focuses on a well-defined and clearly formulated research topic. When it comes to the search strategy used for each one of those types of reviews, in the narrative reviews, we don't have a predefined protocol. There may be subjective or author selection bias. The search methods may not always be published in the method section. So there's more flexibility and more opportunities, if you want, for bias to appear in those articles. In the systematic reviews, however, there's a predefined protocol. One aims to find all existing literature. The search strategies must be very clearly defined. They are part of the method section and must be replicable. When it comes to inclusion and exclusion criteria, in the narrative reviews, They're just based on the author's research experience and potentially intuition. But in terms of systematic reviews, here they need to be very clearly spelled out, predefined, and carefully followed by all authors contributing to this work. So in narrative reviews, you have overall a much greater degree of flexibility. In the systematic reviews, you have very specific guidelines and criteria to follow. In terms of the search media, for narrative reviews, you can use PubMed or Medline databases. These would be these would provide sufficient information. For systematic reviews, one tries to use as many databases as possible in order to find all available literature on the specific topic they will be researching. So Medline, PubMed, Embase, Web of Knowledge, Scopus, etc. For data extraction, in the narrative reviews, a simple description of research findings is appropriate, but for systematic reviews, you need a very specific protocol that will be chosen and followed throughout. And then when it comes to data synthesis, again, we have important differences between the two types of reviews. So for narrative reviews, we have an overall description of the studies conducted, and we don't necessarily have application of statistical tools for the data that was found. So we don't do statistical analysis in the narrative review. But in the systematic reviews, things are quite different, because here we need to use data extraction tools and adhere to synthesis guidelines such as Prisma. And here we may include a meta-analysis if desired, and if appropriate, of course, for our scientific question. And a few more points where narrative and systematic reviews differ. In the narrative reviews, one may not consider study quality or potential bias in the study design. In systematic reviews, however, this is very important to consider. Systemic assessment of bias risks and sources of heterogeneity between individual studies need to be taken into consideration and discussed. In terms of timelines, the time frame for narrative reviews depends on the research topic, preferred outcome, the desired level of breadth. But for systematic reviews, the time frame runs in months or even years, and it involves creating and documenting articles, reviewing citations carefully, and analyzing data, all of which is time intensive. Now, the team size that will be performing this work, of course, can vary considerably from team to team. In narrative reviews, it's something that can be performed by even a single person. In the systematic reviews, however, you definitely need more than one people, if nothing else, to avoid potential sources of bias. So at least 2 or more individuals are required to independently evaluate evaluate the original literature that will be used and extract the data. So you see how there are some quite significant differences between narrative and systematic reviews, and therefore a completely different approach that needs to be followed towards each direction. And this, of course, is why it's so important for you to decide right from the start what type of review you want to prepare, so you follow the appropriate path right from the beginning. In summary, as we're coming closer to the end of our presentation, a systematic review answers a defined research question by collecting and summarizing all empirical evidence that fits pre-specified eligibility criteria. We need to identify the research question, define carefully the inclusion and exclusion criteria, search for studies, and this is an exhaustive search, select the studies that meet our criteria and will be included, extract the data, and both of these steps need to be performed in an unbiased way as possible, assess the quality, and then do the analysis one wants to do, synthesize and present the results. In narrative reviews, Here we have comprehensive, critical, and objective analysis of the current knowledge on the topic. And the aim is to establish a theoretical framework and focus our context for this research topic. So each one requires different type of work and has different things to offer to the scientific community. Both of them highly valuable. And with that, I'd like to wish you very good luck with your research and your publications. It was a pleasure giving this talk and sharing this information with you. A disclaimer by Inago and a big thank you. I'm here to answer any questions and have a lively discussion with you. So please feel free to use the Q&A box that's available through this platform.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Despina, Miss Nicole. Thank you very much. And to the next session, we have several questions actually come up from the chat room. I will read it for you.
Thank you.
The first question, from the perspective of journal editor or reviewer, how they decide which literature review paper to be accepted for their publication, as almost all researcher or PhD student begin their research journal by writing a literature review paper. I assume there will be so many literature review papers in competition to be accepted in good journal. I think you can answer first question, Dr. Despina. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question and a very, very appropriate one. Indeed, a lot of students starting and a lot of people getting into a new field start by writing a literature review. And of course, there is intense competition, not only in reviews that are being submitted, but in research articles as well. And a lot has been discussed through Inago as well, and there's a lot of presentations as to how often manuscripts get rejected. That's a fact. It's not a problem, it's just a fact, and in a way it's something that makes us better. But the editor and the reviewers will decide purely based on the quality of this work, the quality of the information that is there, the scope, and the novelty. If it's a topic that's been extensively reviewed recently and there's no more original research information that would justify yet another review, then it will be hard to get it published. Unless it really presents a novel opinion, a new take on things in the field, based on the the scientific information available to date. However, if it's a research topic for which there is exciting new original data, but no other reviews, or at least no recent reviews following these exciting new original data, then it's the right time to write a review. And then it's the quality. You must make sure that what you write is of the highest quality, taking into consideration all the different tips and key points we were discussing today. Yes, there will be competition, but quality is your sword if you want, and critical thinking is what will get you ahead in your own field.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Despina. Amazing, actually, your presentation. Very clear, including the description of 6 different review articles. And we'll go to the second question, Dr. Despina. We have a question from Mr. Arif Wibisono. He is from the Department of Information System. According to your experience, what type of literature review that are preference of editor? According to your experience, what type of literature review that are preference of editor? So we could have a better chance actually for publication. Will it be a scoping review or something else? Thank you, Dr. Despina.
Thank you. That's a very good question as well. I don't think this question, though, has a black and white answer, because it very much depends on the field you're in, and it very much depends on the work that has been done so far in your field. So depending on the scientific question that you want to answer, that you feel is cutting edge, and a lot of people want to know the answer. So depending on this question, you need to choose the best fitted review. It's not a specific type of review that is preferred by the editors, but it's the novelty of this article that you will be submitting that will attract their attention, because what they want is something that their readers will enjoy. They will find exciting, interesting, novel. So anything that meets these criteria will be attractive to an editor and reviewers.
Yes, yes. Thank you. That's good point. Yeah. So the reader should be enjoy, yeah, and it should be novel. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Is there any other question, Bapak Ibu, please? Okay. Let me refresh Dr. Desmina. Yeah. Actually, we have invite. Actually, we have invite particularly new faculty staff. Yeah, in terms of back to 5 years. Yeah, we invite them to join our seminar, our webinar, and of course they are new faculty staff. Yeah, and they want to build a profile of international researcher. Yeah, particularly in the number of publication. And related with this topic, yeah, that is a review article. Yeah, to the best of your knowledge, yeah, is it possible for them is referred to new faculty staff, yeah, to compile a review article publication, or just wait to have several publication in the selected publication? Do you get my question, Dr. Desmina?
If I understand correctly, you're asking if someone is new in the field,
Yes.
if they are in a way entitled to write a review on this topic, right?
Yeah. Is there any chance for them? Yeah. Is there any chance for them to start to write a review article?
That's an excellent question. Yes, that's a very common question. And you know, in fact, there's a lot of people who will not dare to write a review because they don't feel that it's appropriate for them. But from my experience, yes, the reviewers and the editor will be a little more skeptical if they see a review by someone who's never published anything in this field before. On the other hand, if it's a very high quality work, this will allow them to proceed in considering it and possibly accepting it. So yes, it may be a little tougher, but the high quality, I have to repeat, is your sword. And if it's of high quality, then yes, I think it has very good chances of being published.
I got your message actually. Basically, we need to improve, yeah, the quality of the review article. Thank you.
For all of us and for all types of articles, at the end of the day, if something is of high quality, even if we don't have the track record, it will come across as a convincing and valuable piece of work. Of course, it is tougher to write something of very high quality in a field that you're only just getting started. It's not impossible. It is tough though. It's much harder than if you were in the field for 10 or 20 or 30 years. Of course, it's not though impossible. So I would not discourage anyone from trying if they really want to put the effort in it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Desmina. And also, actually, we select this particular topic, Dr. Desmina. We select actually, particularly the topic of review article, to increase the chance of our college, yeah, to boosting their impact publication in terms of citation,
yes,
or as well as their its index, yeah. And regarding with that, yeah, you mentioned earlier that you discussed about 6 different review article. to the best of your knowledge, Dr. Despina, which type of 6 review article that might more readers access or read? Thank you, Dr. Despina.
Thank you. That's a tricky question. I fully understand the rationale, and indeed, it's very important for all of us to see the citations for our work, because it's a reflection of the importance of our contribution in a way. Now, the most common types of reviews, at least from my experience, would be the narrative and systematic reviews. Compared to the other available types of reviews. This is what you encounter most often, and what people tend to, at least from my experience in my specific field, tend to read more often. Now, between the two, I don't think one can actually say that it's definitely one or the other. It's probably, they're both probably equally popular, but what can make a very big difference in the citations you will attract is how novel the topic you choose is, and the timing when you choose to publish it. The timing can make a huge difference. And beyond the type of the review, these two parameters, novelty and timing, I think is what would put it, make it stand out from all other pieces of work. For example, if you wrote about COVID 5 years ago, I don't know how many people would read it. If you write about it today, then you have a much bigger population that will be interested in it. Again, in 10 years' time, if you write about COVID, hopefully it will not still be such a big issue.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's a good point, Dr. Despina. And if may allow that, I will read another question, Dr. Despina.
Thank you.
In your perspective, how many authors should be in a single article? Sometimes I found an article with a lot of authors. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for this question. There is no restriction on that, really. It very much depends on how many people are needed to perform this work. It can be done by one person, 2 people, or more, depending on the type of review and the amount of work that's needed. Some journals will have restrictions on the number of authors, but usually that's a fairly large number that they allow. So if you have specific journals in mind, just double check with them, because if you come up with 20 authors, it will look strange for sure. And in general, in reviews, we tend to have a smaller number of authors than in research articles, because the amount of work that needs to be performed is different, and you need the consistency across certain parts of the project. So if it's a narrative review, it's usually, I guess it's unusual to have more than 3, 4, 5 authors, but it could be the case. Just assess it on a case-by-case scenario. Always keeping in mind that authorship should be justified. That's the most important thing. Should be justified by the work that's been performed by those individuals.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Despina. Please, Bapak Ibu, is there any other question? It's marvelous speaker actually today. Thank you very much, Dr. Despina.
Thank you. It's a true pleasure to be with you.
I have 2 questions actually.
Yes.
Is there any chance for me to raise the question, Dr. Despina?
Of course.
Okay. Meanwhile, we are waiting for other question from other participant, Dr. Despina. This one actually, this is a very technical, Dr. Despina. Is there any advice from you, particularly in review article, how to search, and collect the publication journal which has a similar topic? I think this is probably important, particularly for the student to have good literature study and its status of the art from that of specific topic?
Great. Yes, that's very important question. Carefully searching and appropriately searching the literature is very important for two reasons. One is to know exactly what's been published so far, so you don't try to publish the same thing, but also very important so that you know what's going on in the field, and therefore you can write the most informative and comprehensive review as possible. At least for I guess there are many different fields in science, and depends on what suits each one best. But in the biomedical field, PubMed is certainly PubMed and Medline are the starting points. What does need some attention is how you choose the keywords to use in your searches, and how you will use the different filtering tools and advanced search tools that are available there. So for all starting scientists and students, I would strongly recommend, if they haven't had the opportunity to do so yet, to familiarize themselves with PubMed. Not just, the main box where you type in one word, but play around with the different settings, with the different search options, advanced searches, the site tools, and play around searching with different keywords and test the system. If you put a word spelled out in one way, does it give you all the information, or do you have to provide all the different spellings for it? I won't give you the answer to that, but you have to try it out and make sure that you know what you're getting out of each search. Know how to combine terms, when to use the word and, when to use the word or, when to use a comma, and what different types of information that will give you. Because sometimes you perform the search in one fashion, it doesn't give out all the results that are available, only a part of them. But if you're not an expert in the field, you don't have a way of knowing that. So don't wait until the moment that you will absolutely, definitely depend on that search, but ahead of time, familiarize yourself with those tools and know which would be the most suitable keywords for different topics. You don't want something that's too broad. You don't want something that's way too narrow. Learn to adjust it to the question that you have in mind.
Okay. Thank you very much. Marvelous, Dr. Despina, Ms. Nicole. I think we can close the session actually. Of course, if there is one more question, otherwise we can end it the session. Please, Bapak Ibu, jika ada pertanyaan satu lagi, jika tidak mungkin bisa kita tutup ya diskusi kita pada sesi hari ini. Okay, thank you very much for Dr. Despina and Ms. Nicole Arya. Marvelous. Thank you very much. Please, the audience, please give a warm applause for them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And please don't feel bored if we invite all of you again. Particularly, as I mentioned, actually, we want to improve the impact of our research, particularly how to boosting the citation as well as the research profile in terms of its index, Dr. Despina and Ms. Nicole. Yeah, that's the goal of our discussion today, actually. So basically, we invite Dr. Despina and Ms. Nicole bringing one particular topic, that is review article, and which we believe that can boost the citation as well as its index. Thank you very much for your coming and marvelous presentation. And I think we can end it the session. Thank you very much. We can end it. Selamat sore. Good evening, Ms. Despina and Ms. Nicole Arya.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.